I'm standing in one of the largest clear cuts I've ever seen inside a provincial park. This is Duck Mountain in Manitoba, and the Wilderness Committee has been calling for an end to logging in parks for decades. Now I'm going to give you 3 points about logging, and I also want to give you a bonus point. I'm going to start with the bonus point. This is a park. Parks are not for logging. Parks are for protection of nature, for an area for us to have recreation. They're not for industrial activity. So Louisiana Pacific and the Manitoba government have the ability to end logging in provincial parks in Manitoba. That is to remove Duck Mountain Provincial Park from Louisiana Pacific's 20-year logging plan. That's the bonus point. Remember, no matter what I tell you about the logging going on here, there should be no logging in a park. But going on to the logging that is happening, the gate to get in here, a several kilometer road inside Duck Mountain Provincial Park, was left unlocked. Anybody could have driven in, come in here, done whatever they wanted. The very first thing that degrades nature is road access. Anybody will tell you that. Any scientist will discuss the biggest impact on nature comes from the establishment of roads. So the Manitoba government is allowing permanent all-weather roads to be installed in Duck Mountain Provincial Park. They're going to be here for decades, if not a century, and we are going to be permanently damaging this park. So road access, the places where they say they're closing the roads, they throw some logs across, oh, maybe this will do. These things don't deter people who are trying to get in. When you've built a road, that road becomes utilized. Putting roads into provincial parks for industrial activity is wrong. Putting all-weather roads in for logging has a really serious consequence for the area that you put the road into. On to the wildlife guidelines. In 1989, the Manitoba government released wildlife guidelines, and the very specific recommendation was that moose don't like to be further than 200 meters from the edge of the forest. That's their kind of security buffer. So 200 meters from the edge of the forest means a 400-meter line of sight. There shouldn't be 400-meter lines of sight in clear cuts that are in moose habitat. Of course, Duck Mountain is really, really important. Moose habitat, this is very important for First Nations. This is literally the lifeblood of communities is moose hunting and the teachings that go along with moose hunting and the nutrition and the sustenance and the cultural importance of moose. So for us to be impacting moose in Duck Mountain Provincial Park is a terrible idea. For us to be ignoring the wildlife guidelines, however many times today I looked off into the distance and said, well, that's more than 200 meters to the forest. I can see more than 400 meters in that direction and that direction and that direction. This clear cut that I've walked into in Duck Mountain Provincial Park is definitely illegal according to the wildlife guidelines that have been in place since 1989. Finally, water crossings. However many times I walked across, there's even one place or two places where there's piles of culverts where the people putting this new all-weather road in decided, nah, we probably don't need to put the culverts in. We're just going to throw some logs down, cross our fingers, and this should be fine. Well, they're breaking up wetlands. The roads themselves are eroding. There's all sorts of erosion on the hills, creating sedimentation into those wetlands. And then that's just from the road building component. From the clear cuts themselves, standing in an area that you're looking down, it's like this should be a wetland. You can see the vegetation, the discoloration. There would be a wetland here, except they've removed all the vegetation. There's no trees protecting this area. The microclimate of a wetland, much cooler, disappears, and then the wetland disappears. Of course, we're in a drought year, so a lot of the areas that would look wet right now aren't wet, but you can clearly see that they paid no attention to protecting the wetlands in a whole bunch of different areas in this clear cut. I think those were the three things: the wildlife guidelines, wetlands, road access, and the bonus point. I'm auditing forest operations inside a provincial park. I'm auditing how they're logging this park. They should not be logging this park. Louisiana Pacific is on the hook for this. The Manitoba government is on the hook for this. Visit wildernesscommittee.org, find the letter writing tool, send a letter off to the government. It's really important because right now, Louisiana Pacific is trying to get a 20-year contract to keep doing this damage to this park. Please raise your voice. We need to. Now is the time. This is the last park in Manitoba. We're going to end logging in parks. I'm Eric, on the ground in Duck Mountain Provincial Park for the Wilderness Committee.